Since the start of the war in Ukraine, the US government has sent a lion's share of military aid that Ukraine received. Periodically, the US government releases fact sheets with a detailed list and numbers of committed systems, ammunition, and so on. In late October, another fact sheet was released, and this video will go over it in detail. It will talk about all the items listed, put them in context, and explain how important each is to Ukraine's efforts. In the next part of the video, we will also conclude which 8 items in particular had the biggest effect on the war. Before we start, we have to stress 2 crucial things. One, we've almost never done a video topic this long, which is why we had to divide it into 2 parts. Secondly, the list shows committed numbers. That includes systems already sent and systems that have not yet been delivered to Ukraine. Sometimes certain systems need to be produced, taking over a year to be delivered. Also, not all items on the list are actual US-made systems. Some have been financed by the US, like second-hand items bought from third-party countries, paid for by the US and then shipped to Ukraine. Without further ado, let's begin dissecting the list. We'll do it in order the list is presented, but in our next video, the most impactful items will be analyzed once again. Anyway, air defense section. 1 Patriot air defense battery with missiles. It's both significant and not so significant aid at the same time. Patriot, given that the US and its allies sent the most advanced Patriot variant, is the most capable air defense system Ukraine has, and it's been crucial for defense of targets around Kiev. No other Ukrainian system could have defended from ballistic missile attacks so efficiently, such as Iskander and Kinzhal attacks. At the same time, the US sent just 1 system, with Germany sending another one, and France and Italy sending a similar class SAMP-T system. 3 such batteries are really not enough to cover even a small part of Ukraine's needs. Before the Russian attack, Ukraine had some 35 S-300 batteries of various models operational. Given the attrition in war, these Patriot numbers Ukraine got are far inadequate. Let's go on. 12 NASAMS batteries with missiles. Those are important to plug the gaps, as numbers are needed to cover a large area. But out of the 12 NASAMS committed, the US delivered several so far, possibly only 2 batteries. That being said, other countries committed 5 more NASAMS batteries, out of which some 3 have been delivered. NASAMS has a much shorter range than Patriot, but it's still an advanced system using AMRAAM missiles. Last of the presently committed US NASAMS are scheduled for delivery by the end of 2024, after they've been produced. Unspecified number of Hawk systems is also listed. While possible that those include just battery components to augment the Spanish Hawk battery, it's also plausible a few whole batteries were also sent. Unverifiable rumors sometimes state the US sent 2 Hawk systems. Hawk is an old Cold War system, but it can still be useful in certain situations. The next item is AIM-7 and RIM-7 missiles. Those Sea Sparrows have been integrated to Ukraine's existing book launchers. According to the leaked Pentagon documents back in March, Ukraine then had some 50 book batteries remaining, so those Sparrow missiles could in theory represent massive help to Ukraine. Coverage-wise, dozens of book batteries with Sea Sparrows could essentially plug all the gaps left behind by inadequate numbers of other Western systems. The Sea Sparrow is also a Cold War system, but roughly similar to regular book missiles technology-wise, though with a shorter reach. However, very little has been publicized about Sea Sparrow performance in Ukraine, possibly because system conversions have yet to be done in numbers. AIM-9M Sidewinder is an air-to-air missile, but the US defense official told the Associated Press in October those are also going to be mated to older Ally-supplied launchers, possibly matching them to Soviet-era OSA systems. That would work well. The AP article also mentioned a whole new launcher, whatever that means. A vehicle or just a launcher module. The whole SAM system would then work as a short-range SAM with some 6 or so miles of slant range. Let's cover the rest of the air defense segment a bit faster. More than 2,000 Stinger man-portable class anti-aircraft missiles. Those can come in handy at the front lines, as their firing teams are easy to hide. They may be the reason why Russian helicopters don't venture too close to the front lines, and they present a cheaper way of dealing with drones compared to other Western systems. They're also used by Avenger air defense systems, which are listed next. Other sources suggest the US sent some 20 Avenger vehicles, giving Stingers extra mobility and their own optical sensors. Vampire counter-drone systems use laser-guided hydro rockets, usually used by attack helicopters. The system also includes some tracking optics, and they are a fairly cheap way of countering drones. Allegedly, up to 14 systems are to be delivered, with the first 4 delivered this summer. The list goes on about counter-drone gun systems, laser-guided rockets, and various other anti-aircraft guns. Details aren't known, but they're likely fairly cheap systems, so they can deal with the low-flying Russian drones and slow loitering munitions on the cheap. Equipment to integrate Western systems and sustain Ukraine's existing systems is a very broad category, but there's usually a bunch of maintenance and replacement parts needed for air defense batteries to keep operating. 21 air surveillance radars are listed last. While not specified, other sources suggest those are all Sentinel radars, compact, trailer-based medium-range radars, which can be used to plug the surveillance gaps of larger radars when needed, but they're also used as NASAM's primary acquisition radars. Overall, the air defense aid has been quite crucial. Without it, Russian Air Force would have been much more active over Ukraine by now. The fact sheet list then covers fire support systems and ammunition. First up are 38 HIMARS systems listed. The US has delivered some 20 launchers so far from its own stocks, with the remaining 18 being manufactured to enter service by the end of 2024. HIMARS is important because it's mobile and its precise Gimler's missiles have considerable reach. Actually, it's one of the crucial systems the US gave to Ukraine, not only complicating Russian logistics, thus directly impacting long-term Russian combat effectiveness, but Gimler's missiles have also been crucial in cutting off bridges and supply lines across Dnieper in 2022, perhaps single-handedly enabling Ukraine to take Kherson. Number of Gimlers isn't specified, but the March 2023 Pentagon leak suggested 9,600 missiles expended by then. Accounting for the missiles sent and the fact it's 6 months later now, it's plausible the US has sent little under 20,000 missiles by now. Ground-launched small-diameter bombs are rocket bodies mated to GPS-guided small-diameter bombs, launched from HIMARS and similar launchers. Those are scheduled to start delivery this fall, and initial quantities are likely gonna be low. Yet their 90-mile reach, almost doubling Gimler's reach, will further complicate Russian logistics, threatening important assets behind the front line and so on. Depending on numbers available, they may prove to be very important. The list doesn't mention ATACMS missiles, but as we know, those too have recently been used in Ukraine. Their numbers are for now small. The list then goes on about various artillery systems and ammunition, which we won't cover all in detail, but certainly the 155mm howitzers are a very important part of Ukrainian firepower. The list mentions 198 systems pledged. While no breakdown is mentioned, other sources suggest the US gave 18 M109 Paladins self-propelled howitzers and pledged 173 M777s Todd howitzers, of which most should have reached Ukraine by now. Todd howitzers are less mobile and easier for Russia to target. Some 45% of all 777s have been photo-documented as destroyed or damaged, though the real figure may be higher. In contrast to that, some 30% of self-propelled M109s have been documented as damaged or destroyed. Of course, other countries sent many artillery pieces, so US figures there represent just a small subset of the overall figures. 155mm howitzers are crucial for Ukraine as that's the biggest NATO caliber available in numbers. Those guns can achieve decent range and pack a punch. Plus their ammunition comes with a wide choice of variants. They can use GPS-guided shells, mine-laying shells, and so on. The same item line also says that more than 2 million 155mm rounds have been delivered. That's a very rough figure, and those figures don't necessarily get updated promptly. The January fact sheet had 1.09 million rounds stated. By March 20th, that figure changed to over 1.5 million. May 21st fact sheet increased that to over 2 million. So as of late October, it's plausible the US has sent, paid for or otherwise pledged close to, but not quite, 2.5 million 155mm rounds. Those figures likely include all types: mine layers, smoke, illumination and cluster shells. And crucially, that figure likely does not mean all of those rounds came from US stocks. Rather, several 100,000 at least likely came from other countries' stocks. An example being when late last year the US bought 100,000 rounds from South Korea and shipped them to Ukraine. Then in April of this year, 500,000 shells were landed by South Korea to the US, so the US can resupply parts of its stocks as it keeps sending US shells to Ukraine. Ammunition numbers are massively important for Ukraine. Without enough of those shells, Ukraine would not have been able to suppress Russian positions as it went on various offensives or performed various counterattacks. The list states more than 7,000 precision-guided 155mm rounds. Those are Excaliburs, GPS-guided rounds that are not only accurate within just a few feet, but their gliding flight profile enables a range of some 25 miles. Those have been effective as artillery sniper shots, neutralizing important individual enemy vehicles behind enemy lines. Artillery aid supplied is perhaps even more important than the air defenses, especially one that enables precise elimination of enemy systems. More than 20,000 remote anti-armor mine shells are listed next. Each such shell lays 9 anti-vehicle mines. They're an effective method of quickly creating a brand new minefield and can suppress enemy vehicle formations as they attack or try to counterattack, like during the Ukrainian offensive. 72 105mm howitzers are listed next. Those are all M119s, light mobile howitzers that frankly lack range and punch to be used a lot, which is why the 105 caliber is not very present in Ukraine, but they can still come in handy. Those came with over 800,000 105mm rounds. Various other artillery caliber rounds are also listed. Those have been purchased by the US from various third-party countries around the world and shipped to Ukraine. Figures are shown on the screen. Those have come in handy during the period when NATO standard calibers were scarce to bridge the ammunition gap, as Ukraine was at one point running out of ammo for its Soviet-era guns. Mortars are also mentioned, though their numbers are fairly low, possibly showing that mortar usage in Ukraine isn't very high. Mortars are usually used for more direct support to own maneuvering troops. Over 400,000 various mortar rounds are listed, which frankly corroborates the not as high mortar usage. The next line is quite important. More than 70 counter-artillery and counter-mortar radars. Those are used to track enemy shells flying through the air, and in doing so, calculating where those shells were fired from, so Ukraine can then use its own systems, often artillery of its own, to attack those areas. That's called counter-battery fire. It was reported that the sufficient number of such radars enabled Ukraine to gain local artillery advantage over Russian artillery during the latest offensive. Even though Russia might have had more gun tubes, a precise counter-battery fire enabled Ukraine to target Russian artillery and either neutralize it directly or force it to relocate often, thus lowering its effectiveness. Last item, 20 multi-mission radars, lacks info, but multi-mission radars can range from smaller radars to be used either on the battlefield itself to spot enemy vehicles or to spot low-flying drones. They can also be medium-sized vehicle-mounted radars that can also detect aircraft, missiles and artillery rounds. Without details, it's hard to say much, but 20 radars is better than none, especially if they're really capable enough to track enemy artillery rounds. On to the ground maneuver section. It starts off with tanks, 31 Abrams and 45 T-72 tanks. As the US obviously doesn't use T-72 tanks, those refer to the US government paying for T-72B tanks, buying them from other countries. It's possible those tanks are the ones shipped to Czechia, where they were modernized to T-72EA standard. If indeed that's the case, then those tanks got new sensors for all 3 crew members, new reactive armor tiles, a more powerful engine, new communication systems, and so on, essentially making the 35-year-old B model into something more lethal. Of course, it's the 31 Abrams tanks that are the main addition. Those have started trickling into Ukraine in late September, likely taking a few weeks to have them all delivered. The US is sending the M1A1 SA variant, which was taken from army stocks and refurbished. Starting in 2003, many M1A1 tanks went through refurbishment and upgrades to SA standard. It's likely these 31 tanks are those tanks. In some regards, they're still old technology, using first-generation thermal sights, but in other regards they have modern comms, navigation and battlefield control systems, and can integrate into a modern army more easily. They're also possibly lacking depleted uranium armor inserts, as those are generally not inserted to export-oriented tanks. Tanks will get depleted uranium munitions, however, as that's deemed not as sensitive. All that being said, neither the 30-something Abramses nor the 40-something T-72s are really going to mean much on their own. Far bigger numbers would be needed for that, but Ukraine is going to use them as part of their wider system. With the Leo 2 losses suffered so far, the Abramses will come as a worthy addition. 190 Bradley vehicles are listed next. That tally includes 4 Bradley fire support team vehicles. Overall, some 100 or so Bradleys might have been handed over to Ukraine so far, out of which half had videos or photos of them being damaged or destroyed so far. We had made several videos on the Bradley and its role in Ukraine. It's good to have an infantry fighting vehicle with useful thermal sights and anti-tank missiles. The best thing about it is its available numbers, and the US is increasing its numbers periodically as initial Bradley shipments got neutralized. The next are armored personnel carriers, 118 9 Strikers, which are wheeled, and 300 M113s, which are tracked. Those generally lack capable sensors and weapons and are basically battlefield taxis. Those Strikers have at least been observed in Ukraine with remote-operated weapon stations, smaller optics coupled with usually 50 cal machine guns. Their weak armor also means they're not really used at the very front line. It's likely both types include various subvariants, like the medical treatment vehicles for the M113 and the engineer vehicles for the Strikers. Some will come with mine rollers to trigger anti-armor mines. The most important thing for both is their numbers and availability. Vehicles get wrecked in wars, and having access to ample numbers is important. While most of the M113s have likely been handed over to Ukraine by now, it's possible half of the Strikers still need to arrive to Ukraine. Apparently not all 250 M1117s have arrived to Ukraine either, even though they've been pledged almost a year ago now. They're a simple vehicle, lacking serious sensors and weapons, best used for patrols behind the front lines. Though in a pinch, they could be used as light armored personnel carriers for a fire team. It's one of those non-glamorous systems that still has its use in a war. More than 500 mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicles of various types have been listed next. Once again, those are best used for patrols not near to the front lines. Even though their armor is weak, they have been designed to keep their occupants safe in case of running over a mine. As that seems like a niche use in Ukraine, sometimes those vehicles have been seen near the front lines, possibly with minimal crews, just to probe for minefields. The list then mentions over 2,000 Humvees, workhorses of the US Army, so it's logical Ukraine got many of those too. They're not really battlefield vehicles of any kind, but military units still need both personnel and equipment to be hauled around, even behind the front line. They do have some basic armor protection. Without such vehicles, organizing assaults would be trickier, as there's a lot of support that needs to accompany armored formations. And then we come to actual support vehicles. The list mentions several categories: over 200 light vehicles, 300 armored medical treatment vehicles, 68 trucks and 124 trailers for heavy equipment, 600 more vehicles for towing equipment, 8 logistics support vehicles, 239 fuel tankers, 105 fuel trailers, 58 water trailers, and so on. Vehicles like those are absolutely indispensable in a modern army. A US armored brigade usually has some 300 armored combat vehicles, accompanied by 1,000 various support and logistics vehicles and hundreds of trailers. In that context, the US gave little over 1 brigade's worth of support vehicles, for some 2.5 brigade worth of armored combat vehicles, which might signal the expected casualty rates among the frontline combat vehicles. There are also 131 equipment recovery vehicles, 10 command posts, 30 ammo support vehicles and 18 armored bridging systems, as well as various tank and Bradley ammunition and undefined mine-clearing equipment. All those are very much needed for breaking fortified enemy lines, as many damaged vehicles will need to be recovered, and as smaller rivers will need to be crossed at times, mines will need to be cleared. In all likelihood, all that equipment is lacking in numbers compared to what Ukraine really needs to quickly break through Russian fortifications. Aircraft, anti-armor systems, maritime and general aid in regards to other capabilities will be covered in our next video. Hopefully it will come out in a week. We will also end that video with a top list weighing which specific items helped Ukraine the most and how. So stay tuned. And remember, Binkov may talk about war, but only real peace can bring us all together.